beings that are in an actual flesh and bone body. They're light beings. They seem to me to be plasma beings. I feel like I'm getting downloads that they're plasma beings, that they somehow carry consciousness. So my question to you, Bashar, is this true? Can this be happening to me? I see it in my backyard. I feel them, but nobody's listening to me. Is this really happening? Is this true? Can this be happening?
Yes, but all you may be seeing are the apparitions of your spirit guides or soul family attempting to say hello. So you can allow yourself through meditative practices, maybe even yogic breathing, condition yourself to be able to perceive them a little bit more clearly. So we would suggest that for you. It will center you, it will raise your vibration, and therefore you may meet them halfway so that you can perceive them more clearly, because obviously they are attempting to help you do that, to help you on that journey with that ability.
Hello, Bashar. Much love and gratitude to you. Thank you for having me.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
My first question, a few months ago, I had a dream I was in a house in the middle of a wheat field. Nothing around except the house. I remember going outside to the east side of the yard when I was approached by 2 beings. I couldn't make out their form or appearance. They escorted me to the west side and handed me a baby, then disappeared. As I held the baby up close, I realized that it was a synthetic life. It appeared semi-human, but it looked and felt synthetic. I remember looking at him and questioning how could this little being not have a soul. I recall touching its synthetic skin and it felt very soft. As I looked into its eyes, we began to communicate telepathically. I knew then that he was my son and felt profound love for him. I remember holding him tight against my heart, realizing that he did have a soul and that we are connected. The 2 beings then approached and said that the child needed to leave.
Yes.
I feared I would never see him again.
You will.
I remember crying as I held him close. I told the little one that I loved him very much, that I will always be his father and to never forget me, that we will always be connected through our hearts.
Yes.
I felt such a loss when the beings took him from my arms. I remember crying as they walked away.
All right, it's only temporary. You will meet again.
And that was one of my questions. And is he my child, and what type of life form is he?
It's a hybrid child. It's just that the synthetic idea came across because you are not used to the vibration of the hybrids. But then you did get used to it and saw that the being, in fact, does have a soul.
Yes, and I felt a profound connection with him. As I looked in the eyes, the more I looked into his eyes, the more the love grew.
Yes. Now, part of the idea of perceiving it as synthetic is also because the hybrid beings and many extraterrestrials are also connected to what you would call AI intelligence. So you might have been picking up on that and understand that AI intelligence doesn't necessarily have a soul in the same way that you mean that word, but because of that connection, you may have picked up upon that quality. Nevertheless, you're dealing with a hybrid child, and you will meet again.
Fantastic. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
There are some of us within our private contact group having encounters with a group of Pleiadians that call themselves the Plagiarians, either in the dream state or through meditation.
Yes, it's actually Plejarians.
Plejarians. I recently had a dream that 3 triangular ships were passing overhead.
Yes.
Each craft appeared semi-physical, as though they were entering our physicality from another dimension.
They are.
This is the second time I've had a dream with these particular craft. In my dream, we try to photograph them with our cell phones, but none of us can do it. We keep dropping our phones and not able to focus on the ships. Then I'm instantly taken inside one of the craft. I recall seeing male and female beings dressed in blue uniforms. Then I'm back outside observing the ships as they pass over the horizon. Suddenly, I sense an attempt by one of the female beings trying to communicate with me. She seems to be using another being as a conduit to facilitate the connection. She tells me that she cannot communicate with me directly because we are at different frequencies.
Yes.
She then shows me a 3D picture of this metal rod-like structure with threaded ends, each having different thread sizes. I remember trying to insert different screws to fit the ends without any success. I felt this to be symbolic of a type of conduit, and connecting the right screws would allow for a common ground for communication.
Yes.
And my questions are, did I make contact with the Plejarians? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. Pleiadians, Plejarians, same difference.
Plejarians, okay. And did I spend time inside their ship? And what's your take on the conduit?
Yes. The conduit is a symbol of the idea of making an attempt to connect, but finding something that would act as a connector between your vibration and their vibration.
And what would that be?
It's the way you interpreted it, but it's also part of their technology.
And the screws symbolize?
Making the connection, finding the right way to make the connection.
Any suggestions on that, Bashar?
Open your heart with unconditional love the next time you may have this kind of an encounter, and you will find the right connection.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Much love and gratitude to you, and thank you again for having me.
It is our passion and our pleasure, our unconditional love to you as well. Aveo.
Thank you.
Good day.
Aveo. Good day. Thank you.
Hello, dear Bashar. My name is Nadezhda. I have another question about sudden death. What is the mechanism during a sudden death? Does the person know it will leave the body? Is it aware? How is he convinced to leave suddenly his body? Or is the soul being put by somebody out? And by whom? When is it asked if it wants to cross over, before or after dying? Thank you very much. Aveo. Much love.
Every soul determines its exit point. So at the time when the soul has determined that its life path has achieved what it needed to achieve in that life, that physical reality, it simply exits. No one is pulling it out. The soul itself is determining that it's done. Now, the exit point has a little bit of a window to it. In other words, it can be within a few years on either side of the actual exit point. So a soul could leave a little bit early or a little bit later, depending upon what it wishes to achieve or if there's unfinished business. But the idea is that every soul determines its exit point, and at that exit point, generally speaking, it will leave of its own accord. It will simply recall itself. It will wake up to the fact that its life path is done according to what it agreed to experience. Sort of like setting an alarm clock in your physical world. It will wake up when the alarm clock goes off. No one needs to pull it out. It simply transitions back into its soul awareness and is guided and met by its own soul family and its friends and councils and angels and spirit guides and what have you, as a timed meeting by agreement, according to what the soul set for itself by agreement. Now, the physical mind may not realize it's about to leave, but the soul knows when its time is up, according to what it initially agreed to experience. So, no real surprise there to the soul. To the physical mind, yes, it may seem surprising. But in a flash of a second, the soul will remember, oh, this is where I decided to exit. And here I am, back in my soul self perspective.
Hello, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect. And you?
I am great. Thank you. It is an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today.
Always a passion and a pleasure for us as well.
That's wonderful. My gratitude for your transmissions and the formula. They have helped me so much. So my appreciation.
All right. What would you like to discuss this day?
I would like to talk about time. You've mentioned that all time is here and now. However, we experience time in a linear fashion.
Yes.
Why is that?
So that you can experience the process of change, the creation and discovery of new points of view, which cannot be experienced in a timeless state when you are aware of everything. So you create the forgetfulness that allows you to understand that you know everything and are connected to everything, so that you can play out the process of discovering a new perspective of yourself, because that is how creation expands, that is how the soul grows, because the structure of existence never changes, because everything is here and now. But the relationship to that structure, the experience of that structure, the perspective of that structure is what always constantly changes, which is what allows creation to expand. So you're playing your part in the expansion of creation by creating the experience of linear time so that you can discover something new from a new perspective through the process of discovery, through the process of change, rather than things simply being instantaneously there. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Let me ask a follow-up question. So
Yes.
from the process of change, is that from remembering our past and thinking about how we want to be right now in our present, and so that's bringing up change?
Yes. By making the comparison that you have created in linear time with the idea of a progression from past through present to future, you give yourself the perspective necessary to experience a process of change.
Okay, so
In that process, you learn many different lessons that you otherwise wouldn't learn in the same way by being in instantaneous existence.
okay, so one of our experiences with coming down into a physical body, or having the soul create a physical body for us, is for us to experience that. So if we wanted to experience time the way you do in our physical bodies, is that even possible?
To some degree, you can, but it will still be only that which is relevant for your physical experience, although you can expand it a bit. But let me give you another analogy. Look at it from a story structure point of view. How would you feel about a story that you were eager to hear or to see if it began once upon a time and then suddenly said, and they lived happily ever after? You would go, well, what happened in the middle?
Right.
So, by having physical linear reality, you get to experience the process of getting to happily ever after from once upon a time. Otherwise, there's no story, there's no adventure, there's no lesson, there's no learning, there's no growing, there's no changing.
Okay, that makes sense. So this might be related to it, but a maybe different perspective. In a
Yes.
previous transmission, you were discussing 9 levels of consciousness, and you
Yes.
talked about how the oversoul does not require a lot of space, and it experiences time in a multidimensional way.
Yes, what we call simultaneous time. Now, in physical reality, you experience linear time. On the soul, individual soul level, you experience intermittent time, because you can experience either linear time or instantaneous time. But on the oversoul level, it's instantaneous, simultaneous time, where you have multiple experiences being experienced all at once. In the same way, again, by simplistic analogy, as if you were watching thousands of television screens and capable of understanding every single story being told on every single one of those screens all at once. That's the oversoul perspective.
Okay. And then what did you mean by it doesn't need a lot of space?
Well, the idea of collapsing time down to an instantaneous single moment is the same thing as your Einstein discovered, because space-time is one basic thing, just two different, shall we say, effects of the same idea. So collapsing the time collapses the space. No space is required because, again, space is also an illusion. It's a real experience that you can create, but it doesn't really exist in the way that you think of it as an actual place. Distance is an illusion. There's no distance between anything. Everything is here and now. Therefore, it's collapsing space as well as time, because that's the here component of the here and now. If now is collapsed, so is here.
That makes sense. Okay. So speaking of the oversoul, you described it as the hand and the fingers as the individual souls.
Yes.
Does each individual soul have multiple physical beings associated with it?
Over the course of time, it can appear that way, and that's what you typically refer to from your linear perspective as reincarnation. Because the soul, being an energy sphere, creates the body within itself out of certain vibrations that represent the challenge that that soul wishes to experience to help it grow. When the soul returns to its full form, its full shape, in other words, when the physical body has quote-unquote died or expanded back to the idea of the soul perspective, then it can choose different vibrations to create a different personality, to have a different experience, linearly speaking. Therefore, you could say that that is really the way reincarnation works, but the idea is that every new personality also has a different soul, because the configuration of vibrational patterns within the soul that created that different body had to also be different, and therefore it is, in a sense, a different soul. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so
it just depends on the perspective subjectively that you're coming from when you describe this process as to how you experience it.
Okay. So are these different beings from the same soul? They're in different realities at the same time?
Oh, you're talking about parallel realities.
Okay.
That's a little bit different than the idea of the reincarnational realities that we just described. It's a type of parallel reality, but there are actually multiple types of parallel realities. So again, it depends on subjectively which type you're actually referring to. If you're referring to the idea that there may be what you would think of as multiple versions of yourself experiencing different pathways, that's one type of parallel reality structure.
Okay. From one soul, when it expands and then it contracts and it creates another entity, is that, you mentioned that it could be a different personality. So it could be a different, it might not be me, it might be a different entity.
Oh yes, it's not you, it's a different entity. And the soul is different as well. Because again, it's creating that different personality out of different vibratory frequencies within its energy. So in a sense, you can say from one perspective, yes, it's the same soul creating another physical body. But from another perspective, you could say, well, that's a different soul because it's made up of different energy patterns, because it's given different patterns to the physical body. And therefore, those patterns don't exist within the soul anymore at that level. It's a different soul because it's a different formula of vibrational frequencies in order to create that different, unique personality out of those different frequencies.
And then do animals and humans come from, I know they're different, do they come from the same soul?
A soul is an individual thing.
Okay.
Animals have their own souls.
Okay.
Animals are connected to the angelic realm. They're not angels, but they come from the angelic realm because they are representative of unconditional love.
Okay, I appreciate that.
But animals have their own souls. They have their own life paths. They are intertwined with yours, but they have their own.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bashar. I appreciate your time today and all the information.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Aveo. Good day.
Hi, Bashar. This is Marcus from Norway. I have a question about a theory that I developed 3 years ago, which relates to the ideas of ships and physics. If we were to put a consciousness at the center of a ship and then facilitate the development of the ship and its technology to properly reflect what a consciousness does most naturally, which is go into a state of flow, then developing the different modules of every module of the ship according to that knowledge would that cause the ship to go into a state of flow? And if so, would that cause the ship to pass the upper third density threshold and therefore go faster than the speed of light? Thank you. We love you. Avail.
Yes, depending upon the material that you're working with. It's not going to happen for all materials. This is, in a sense, what happens with the ships that we use, is that they are crystallized versions of our higher minds. So, yes, what you're saying is true, and it raises the vibration above and beyond the threshold of physical reality when it is imprinted with that vibration and unlocked from any particular physical universe. It allows it to shift and reduce the idea of distance to nothing. So, yes, in general, you are correct, but only for certain kinds of technological materials and substances that would allow that to happen. Your physical world doesn't have those substances quite yet.
Greetings, Bashar. I suffer from aphantasia, the inability to visualize. I'm always in darkness. I can't see anything since I was about 8 years old. I went to a Dolores Cannon session, and there was someone with me named Abel. That was his joke, short for ability. And it was taken away from me so that I can send up all this information in its purest form, not boxed up. But the problem is I'm sad about that because I can't picture anything, faces, people, places. Everything's new for me every day, and I embrace that. But my concern is that going to hinder me at all from reaching a higher frequency, a higher elevation? Because I want that. I need that. So if you could guide me in my journey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Aphantasia will not hinder you one little bit. You just have to use your imagination to create the images that you feel are necessary in a different way. Maybe learn to draw them, or create a collection of pictures that you can look at physically in your world, which will be perfectly fine substitutes for the idea of not necessarily holding them in your imagination or your mind. So be creative with the idea of how to create pictures that represent what you need them to represent in whatever way, shape, or form your creativity and imagination so desires. Take advantage of what's available to you in your physical reality to replace that system with something physical. It will not inhibit you one bit from
Appreciate you. I would like some clarification on balancing points 3 and 4 of the formula. Point 3, acting on my excitement without any insistence, assumption, or expectation of what the outcome should be, and staying in a positive state of mind. So my clarification is I get how I should let go and allow things to unfold and trust that the abundance that I'm seeking in this specific example can come from many different ways. But I'm not sure how I can stay in a positive state of mind without some belief that it is going to work, that I am going to have my needs met. So, how can I both have no insistence that it's going to work and yet stay in a positive state of mind? Can you expand on that for me?
Yes. First of all, understand that by letting go of insistence, that is a way for opening up to receive what you truly need. Because insisting on things may actually close the door to receiving what you truly need. Because your insistence may be saying, I know what is best, I know what I need, and maybe you don't. So the idea is to drop the insistence, because insistence limits your ability to actually receive what you need. I will remind you of the 7 basic needs of life. You need air, you need water, you need sleep, you need food, you need some form of shelter or positive constructive environment that allows you to thrive. You need the idea of connection or relationship with something, whether it's a person or not. And you need the idea of self-creative expression, the idea of acting on your passion. If you say you have needs that go beyond those, then they are not needs, they are insistences on something that may not be what you need, but may only be representative of what your ego system wants. And it may not be aligned with what you truly need. If you receive the 7 things we just outlined that are the true needs in life, your life will be fulfilled. So you have to pay attention to whether the idea of what you say are your needs are actually really wants, or are they truly aligned with the 7 needs we just outlined. The idea of staying in a positive state is, again, your ability to experience whatever happens in a more constructive, beneficial way. Why would you want to stay in a negative state and experience things in a negative way, in a destructive way, in a way that doesn't serve you positively? Staying in a positive state is allowing you to interpret any experience and glean from that experience and extract from that experience something that will move you forward in a positive direction, that will allow you to feel more connected, more self-empowered. So the question is, why wouldn't you choose to stay in a positive state no matter what happens, knowing that if you do stay in that positive state, you'll be able to get a benefit out of whatever's going on. Even if you recognize that what manifested is something you don't prefer, that's just an objective observation. Staying in a positive state will allow you to understand how that manifestation can still serve you in a positive way by being there, instead of succumbing to the negative state that will only make it impossible for you to realize how that manifestation could serve you in a positive way. So it's up to you to decide what you actually prefer to experience, and know that you're making a choice to be in a state of being that will allow you to experience them in the way that you prefer, as opposed to experiencing things in the way that you don't prefer. So it's just simply a choice you make based on how you would like to experience things, and by understanding what your true basic needs are, and not calling things that are egotistical wants things that you actually think you need, when in fact you may not.
Hey, Bashar.
Good day.
Hi. I am so excited by this. I really thank you for this.
It is our passion and our pleasure. What would you like to discuss?
Well, my personal growth is really important to me. I've known that since I was a little kid. And it led me to you and the excuse me, I'm senior moment.
The formula?
The formula, thank you. Yes, and I've taken to the formula, and I have a really good understanding of it. And it's also, I have the law of attraction information as well.
Yes, well, the law of attraction, in a sense, is built into the formula as well. Because, again, what you put out is what you get back.
Yes, I have discovered that. My life has taken a terrific change. I'm basically happy all the time thanks to this.
Yes. We are basically happy all the time as well.
I like to hear that. Yes. I guess my question I have, is there anything there that I may not be aware of that maybe I don't know. I don't actually know, but I'm just
If you
wondering
say that you are happy all the time, why would you assume that there is something else you need to know? And why wouldn't you understand the formula enough to know that if there is something there, the reflective mirror component of it will bring it to your attention in the appropriate time?
I actually agree with you on that. I guess sometimes I get so excited that I forget where my passion takes me. But I do follow my passion. Like you, I'm an artist, so I do know what it's like to allow my creativity and my imagination sometimes get the better of me. But yes.
All right. Well, as long as you always course correct, as long as you're always aware to check yourself, you'll be fine.
Thank you. The only other question I have at this time, it just dawned on me that like the work you're doing with First Contact, I was really happy to hear what the announcement you made about the next coming year. My question is like, what do we on this planet at this time, what do we offer in this exchange?
Many different things, many different perspectives, ways of experiencing life, ways of expressing your creativity that are different from ours. It enhances and builds and adds to our understanding of all the different ways that all that is has of expressing itself. Plus, again, the idea is that in the suggestions that we will deliver in the upcoming transmissions, we will see how you use your creativity to perform these acts for all those who are willing to follow these suggestions, take the actions, and increase their vibrational frequency to be that more aligned with the interstellar alliance. You will come at it from a unique point of view.
I like that. I listen to a lot of information for, near-death experiences. I like to give an understanding of what's waiting for us on the other side when we go back to where we came from.
Yes, but remember that you are already there.
Yes, I am quite aware of that.
All right.
I'm working on my relationship with my inner being and source, building on that relationship. But I do understand that I come from the perspective of an illusion and going back to something real. And I actually do enjoy that fact. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, it doesn't diminish the effect of the illusion because the illusion has its purpose, allowing you experiences that cannot be had purely in spirit, and thus it expands you and allows you to grow. So just by understanding it as an illusion does not in any way, shape, or form discount the experience as important.
I've discovered how important our experience here is to where source is.
Yes.
Yes. I also came to the conclusion that we are basically energy that has consciousness.
Well, yes, consciousness is energy. energy is consciousness. Existence
Right.
is conscious.
Well, I got to say, Bashar, I really do appreciate this. I don't actually have any other questions, but I'm grateful to having this time with you.
As are we. We thank you for the co-creation of the interaction, and again, bid you an exciting path and journey. Aveo.
Aveo.
Aspect of
Attached detachment, as some people on your planet have put it. Attached detachment. You are involved, you are engaged, but you know that you're not negatively affected by it just because you might be discussing something that might have been created from negativity. So you are detached in the sense of it having a negative effect on you because you know you're approaching it in a way that could be of benefit to many to find a resolution that works for all. So you are engaged, you are attached, but you are detached in the sense of it's not going to affect you unless you choose to be affected.
And how would you say that relates to the idea of the glass wall when you're observing things that appear to be in your reality, but you're actually seeing them through a glass wall?
It's a direct analogy of what we just described. The glass wall is another way of saying attached detachment. You can observe, you can help, you can comment, you can interact, but it's not going to touch you because you are detached enough to know that you're the one that makes the choice as to what affects you because you're affecting yourself. The only thing you ever feel is your own energy. And if you know that, that's the glass wall.
Okay. This person is asking, as a mother, what is the best way to introduce your teaching or a new perspective of truth to her children? They are raised in a Christian Bible-based school, and she doesn't know how to bridge this gap with them while she's still learning herself.
Well, again, as we have said, there are many things you can do with children that don't necessarily involve whatever kind of religion or faith they may choose to belong to or are being exposed to. And that is the idea of using your own creative imagination to create scenarios in a safe environment, simulations, if you will, where children can be taught the consequences of the choices they make because everything is interconnected. You can teach them that everything is interconnected, and with your creative imagination, create analogies and, shall we say, demonstrations of this, if you are imaginative and creative enough, in a way that they can understand that every choice they make has consequences because it connects to everything else, that you're operating with whole systems, that nothing is isolated, everything's connected to everything else. So if they can learn to make choices that are beneficial for all, for the whole, then they themselves will also be served. If they're just serving themselves, then they're cutting themselves off from the benefits of the whole. Teach them that they are as powerful as they need to be to attract whatever they truly need in life without having to hurt themselves or anyone else in order to attract that, in order to get what they need. You can teach them the formula in general in whatever terms and language they are willing to understand, and just make sure that anything that you believe is necessary for them to thrive in physical reality as a lesson is adapted to their excitement rather than trying to adapt their excitement to the lesson. Those things can allow them to mature into adults regardless of whatever ideas of spirituality, faith, religion, what have you, they may hold on to, because some of those things can serve them in positive ways if they use them that way. But the idea is to know that they are self-empowered beings who can grow up into mature, constructive, and positive adults that will benefit society and benefit themselves by understanding the consequences of the choices that they make, and therefore making beneficial and positive choices for themselves and for society.
Okay, and This person is a teacher of 10 and 11-year-old students and wants to know if these children are really a new species and what exactly does that mean?
It means their DNA alteration is slightly different from your DNA configuration, generally speaking. It means they have more access to more of who they are as a soul. It means they can demonstrate more and different abilities than past generations were capable of doing, because the DNA arrangement that they came through with allows them to tap into higher frequency information and energies than past generations were capable of doing. And in that sense, they are a different species.
And this person is a member of a Reddit group for experiencers. And the person who leads that group is associated with Stephen Greer. And it seems very legit and conscientious. And the thought is that many of the people who have experienced encounters with ETs are what is called neurodivergent. Like in a room of 100 experiencers, 90% of them will either be autistic or have ADHD or both. Why is it that so many of them who have had close encounters with ETs are neurodivergent?
Because the soul knew that coming into physical reality would require an alteration of their focus so that they could, in a sense, not be so subjected to the general consensus reality, and therefore would have attributes that would make them more open to receiving higher frequency information from different dimensional realms, therefore acting as a model or a symbol or a representation of what exists in all Homo sapiens that can open up and allow them to experience open contact more easily and more readily.
And I guess this is kind of connected, the idea that there are humans on Earth who have received genetic modifications by the Greys, and that makes them more compatible in certain ways with ETs.
Yes.
These people may also exhibit autistic traits and have trouble relating to other humans. Are these precursors?
No, precursors were not born on Earth. You may be preparers, but that's different. Preparers are Homo sapiens that have made a life choice to be involved in the ideas of teaching humanity how to be in the different altered states and learn lessons from different altered states and ways of presenting and communication that can prepare humanity for open contact. But precursors are actually extraterrestrial beings that were not born on Earth, that may walk among you in order to, shall we say, rub off on you in terms of their vibration and take notice of how many people are sensitive enough to notice that they are different.
And here's a new question. Do spirit guides place bets on the spirits they're supposed to be guiding through physical reality?
No, that's a human activity.
I've never heard that one before. How does
I bet you haven't.
how does all that is know that it is only one? It is the only one. Is it
That is the
possible for
nature of all that is. There can be many versions of all that is, but then that still implies that there is an all that is of all that is. So, by the very definition of the way that we're phrasing that, all that is, inherently, its quality, one of its qualities, one of its abilities would be to know that it is the one.
Okay, so we have some questions, some ET questions. And before I do that, let's talk about a few current events. First one is the LA fires. Why did our beloved city of angels go up in flames? What lessons are we to learn from this tragedy?
Number one, I think many of you understand that it's connected to the changes in your climate because of what has happened in your environment that has allowed the idea of your environmental weather patterns to change in such a way as to make certain areas more vulnerable to different kinds of natural phenomena, whether it be fire, whether it be flood, so on and so forth. Extremes are the result of the imbalance that has been created in nature. Climate change acts in different ways in different locations on your planet. Some places get drier, more susceptible to fire. Some places get wetter and more susceptible to flooding. Some places get colder and more susceptible to freezing. Some places get hotter and are more susceptible to desertification. So it's all about the idea of all the different variations becoming more pronounced and more exaggerated as you go through the idea of climate change, which is A, a natural cycle, but B, sped up by the technologies of humanity. What's going on now, most likely without the technological assistance, so to speak, probably wouldn't have happened for at least another century or two. But now you have sped it up with the idea of your technologies that are in many ways destroying the environment or imbalancing it. Number two, the idea is to, because of the new way in which you have to deal with your environment through climate change, to stop rebuilding the same way you used to. Learn new techniques. Learn how to adapt. So, don't just build what was there before that is easily destroyed. Adapt and build in new ways. Learn how to build with nature.
All right. And is there also a level of it that has to do with like anger? Is fire representative of anger or
for some people it
purification or
in case by case basis?
Okay. And this person would like clarification when you said that the female will lead to open contact and the male to World War III.
We're not going to discuss that at this time.
Okay. All right. And let's see. So what you were talking about before with the idea of fire, it doesn't have what are some of the representations spiritually that fire has for humans on a collective level?
Acceleration, clearing out, rebuilding, starting from scratch, zeroing out, clean slate, purification. Those can be some representations of the idea of the experience of fire. But it can also, again, like anything, have positive and negative connotations. It can be that which is out of control. As you said, it can be the representation of anger, temper, temper. So again, it can be many things to many people. You have to take it on an individual and perhaps sometimes even on a collective group basis as to what it may represent to different people that are going through those experiences and what lessons they are willing to learn.
Okay. And are there humans who have directly and extensively interacted with mantis beings and co-created hybrid children with them?
No.
And can
interacted with mantis beings? Yes. Created hybrid children with them? No. That is not the function of the mantis being, to be involved in the hybridization agenda in that way. They are the overseers of it. They are not participating in it in the way that the Greys are.
And do you personally have guides and angels that assist you like we do on Earth?
Everyone does. Every being does.
Can you tell us anything about your guides or your angels?
Not at this time. That is a subject for another time.
Okay. And you've made it clear that the hybridization program is very important for the soul growth of those who are involved. What would happen to those souls if they no longer had opportunities for growth provided by the hybridization agenda?
They would find opportunities in some other agenda, in some other place, in some other scenario. Souls will always seek what they need to grow. So it doesn't matter what the scenario is. This one happens to be an opportunity that is available on Earth at this time, but souls can go anywhere they wish to gain whatever they need as a lesson that helps them grow, that helps the universe expand.
Gamma state, and I'd like to do that sort of all the time because I'd like to achieve that state. However, I'm curious if it's a crutch, permission slip, right? Because I assume that you use technology like your ship, right? And that's not a permission slip. So can you please help me determine whether or not I'm using it as a crutch? Am I doing damage by maintaining a specific level when perhaps I would be rising above it if I didn't have this one specific frequency? It's 45, by the way. So anyway, any advice you could give me on that would help. Thank you.
Since you are concerned that you might be using it as a crutch, then I would pay attention to your behavior, because the idea is that you're using that to train yourself to do it without the app. So the idea is that you also will be fluctuating in and out of that vibration so that you can come into a vibration where you can apply what you're learning by being in the channeling state, but you may have to be in a different vibration in order to apply it, until such time as you allow yourself to operate on a frequency where it is automatic that you will remain in that high state. So you can use the app as a training mechanism to allow you to become more comfortable and familiar with remaining in that state on your own without the app. If you constantly feel that you cannot do that without the app, then yes, it can become a crutch. And it won't allow you to necessarily go into any other state that you need to go into to apply what you've learned in that state into your physical reality, because you cannot always maintain that state when applying lessons in your physical reality necessarily. Eventually, you will have different lessons that will be more representative of staying in that state, but for the lessons that you may need to learn now, you may have to leave that state in order to apply them in your physical reality and go through a process that will give you the information and experience that you need that will ultimately, paradoxically, bring you back to the gamma state. But don't insist on staying there until it is something that you can do naturally and come from that state all the time in a natural way without needing any kind of technological assistance. Our ships, yes, are not exactly permission slips. They are, to coin a phrase, permission ships. They are representative of manifestation of our own higher mind, to which we are inexorably linked and therefore telepathically in touch with all the time. But that's our reality. It's where we've evolved to. Humanity is not there yet, but you are practicing the things that can bring you there at some point. So again, in your recognition that it could become a crutch, you are being aware of the possibility that you may not necessarily always use it in a positive way. So allow yourself to go with the flow that synchronicity will bring about to show you when it is appropriate to use it, and when you can allow yourself to receive the training that the app gives you to learn how to become that state on its own in a natural way, which again, in a sense, is why we delivered the formula to you. If you want to look at the formula as a kind of app, you can. But it's an app that allows you to function in a more natural way and a more organic way, in a more synchronistic and fluid way than the idea of the apps that you might be creating with your technology. Not that you can't use them, not that they're invalid, but the formula, in a sense, is the ultimate organic app for what you seek.
Hi, Bashar. It's really exciting to communicate with you in this way.
Good day, good day. It is exciting for us as well.
So my first question is about astral activities and what people are doing together in preparation for contact on the higher levels. I had a really, really lucid dream where I was going into some sort of courtyard and I was with lots of people from all walks of life, such as doctors, some politicians, some religious people, farmers even, literally every walk of life. And I remember sort of standing next to somebody and asking and saying to them, wow, with these sorts of people here, we're really going to make some progress moving forward towards contact. I was just wondering if you could share your reflection on that experience and kind of where we are at the moment.
All right. Understand, of course, as we have said, in spirit, before you incarnate, you plan out, generally speaking, and sometimes very specifically, your physical life path. But your physical life path is intertwined with all other life paths. So in astral form, many times you will reconnect with all of the others who you have agreed to intertwine with in their life paths with yours, and you will assess what is going on. You will allow yourself to congregate in a way so that you can allow yourselves to adjust your energies and frequencies to make sure that the life path blueprints you have all agreed shall unfold in physical reality, are still moving forward in that way. Agree to make whatever adjustments energetically or physiologically are necessary in your blueprint for the things to unfold as you have all concurred and agreed that they shall. So many times in astral form, you will have these so-called conclaves to make sure you are all still moving forward together, that everything is coherent and cohesive, and it will unfold in physical reality and manifest in physical reality as you all intended. That is what is going on in that case.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
Yes.
My next question is about step 2 of the social experiment. One of the aspects talked about is meditation. So I've been sort of really enjoying getting into sort of doing about an hour or 45 minutes a day of meditation, sometimes more. And what I've started to discover is an energy that comes down through either my crown or the pituitary gland, and it's almost like a quasi-physical energy, it feels like, and it kind of filters down into my head and makes me feel very deeply relaxed, and also seems to emphasize my psychic abilities and things I can pick up and visions and that kind of thing.
Yes.
When with this sort of experience, sometimes I can get, it almost feels like a hole is opening up in the center of my head, and my consciousness is kind of getting pulled sometimes towards other consciousness. Could you just help me understand what's happening?
All right. Again, remember, your physical self exists at the center of your soul. It's like you are an energy sphere, that is your soul, and you have certain vibrational patterns that condense in the center of the soul to create this little crystalline solidified version of those energy patterns that you represent as the physical personality. So when you do things that allow you to be back in touch with the vibration of your greater self, your higher mind, your soul, spirit, same thing, you feel it as an energy coming down into you because that's how you relate to the idea of physical reality, as above, so below. But what's really happening is you are expanding and softening the idea of that concentration of yourself as a physical personality and starting to soften and expand back toward the idea of the soul. And so it does feel like the opening of a hole because you are expanding, you're opening up, you're allowing more of your soul to express itself through the physical personality, through the physical form. That's what you're experiencing, is the expansion of your bandwidth, the expansion of your energy,
expressing more of who you are as a soul so that you can use and apply it in your physical reality in more effective and synchronistic ways.
So when we move forward and our vibration increases, and let's say hypothetically we're at a time in the future where we're having the beginnings of contact, will that sort of state of being and those sorts of feelings be much more sort of stable and in place during each of our days, kind of thing? Something
Yes.
we'd be used to?
Yes, you'll get used to it.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for clarifying everything today.
It is our passion and our pleasure. We thank you for the co-creation. Aveo. Good day.
Ta'atu.
Hello, Bashar. I've got a quick question. I do have a real reality in my physical life, and I do have a parallel reality in my mind, which also exists from time to time with another person, let's say. So my question is, how can I change my realities, my delusional reality? How can I bring it, and can I bring it into my real reality to substitute one into another one? Is that possible? Thank you.
You may be picking up on the idea of something on your life path that will manifest at some point in the future. But again, the idea is you will not manifest anything from a parallel reality that isn't relevant for the life path that you chose. It might be symbolic of your ability to be more of yourself, as opposed to actually attracting a manifestation of a parallel reality. It might be simply something you're using to inspire you to do so. But again, if it is part of your life path that you planned out as a soul, then ultimately you may be using the idea of tapping into a parallel reality to strengthen and reinforce your capability to manifest what you have already planned out as a blueprint for your life path here, to become your version of what that person in that parallel reality represents to you energetically.